And good day to you, and welcome, Willard Shepard Law and Media, to In the Know here on the Miami Community News Network. And we're honored today to bring two people with us who are trying to bridge our community together no matter what a person's views are. Reverend Tom Capo is with us, and also the Executive Director, Matt Anderson of Mosaic Miami. We appreciate both of you all coming down here to the studio in South Miami, spending time with us. And I think the conversation we're about to have, there's probably no better time to have it at this point when people are so focused and in silos with information that they are given on social media and the other platforms that so many times they don't think about another person's opinion or view. So we'll go to the Executive Director first. Just tell us and lay the foundation of what Mosaic does here in South Florida and what your ultimate mission and goal is.
Absolutely. So Mosaic Miami has been in this community for almost 90 years. We started off in Miami in 1935 as the Miami chapter of the National Conference of Christians and Jews, which is a large national organization that was at the forefront of the interfaith movement. And we've been in Miami for almost every piece of its important history, whether it's civil rights, the McDuffie riots, Elian Gonzalez, 9/11. And as the community that we serve changed, so did our mission. And the whole time, we've been hyper-focused on embracing diversity and building an inclusive Miami through our programming. The organization started off when organizations like the Ku Klux Klan were gaining power in our country, and the faith community came together to push against that type of hate speech. And Reverend Capo leads our Interfaith Clergy Dialogue, which is the oldest, longest-lasting clergy dialogue in the country, which you'll hear about later. And as you said, our mission is more important now than ever. We've got to go back to the basics where we get people that are different talking to one another to get to understand each other and be in community with one another. Because if we don't understand each other, then this community can't function. So we're creating a space to do so here in Miami.
And Reverend, you were just telling me a little bit about geographically places that you've been. We've covered some of the same territory. My mother's from Texas. I'm a Midwesterner, and my dad's from Kansas City, Missouri. And one of the great things that I say about living here in South Florida is you can walk in a room and we have people speaking 4 or 5 different languages in the same place. And they're from different cultures, different foods, but that's one of the fantastic things that if we can seize it, it's our strength. If you're a Miami Dolphins fan and everybody's a quarterback, you're not going to do anything. Right. If everybody's an offensive lineman, you're not going to do anything. If you only got fast people like Mr. Hill that grab it and take off and run, you're not going to do anything. So what's your message to us about how we can take that and make it a strength, not a division?
Well, think of it this way. As you understand someone else, you can put yourself in their shoes and expand your ability for empathy, expand your worldview, see the world as more complex as it really is. You know, it's easy, as you said earlier, to be in your silos. And when you're in your silos, you don't understand, you may not understand the person you work with or the person you're on the bus with or the person that you see in the store. But if you can understand that diversity is a strength, it leads to us being able to work with each other, to be able to achieve more together, then lots can happen. You know, we've worked on a lot of projects with multi-faith organizations, the Unity March in downtown Miami, and working with Beth Am and some of their unbiased initiatives. It's just been fantastic to work with people who see the world differently and help me expand my worldview.
How do we get to that point? I'll just say, even here in South Florida, even if you look at immigration patterns, even amongst, I'll just say our Haitian community. I live in Biscayne Park, right next door, the largest Haitian community outside of the island of Haiti in North Miami. If you look in the different neighborhoods, Doral, Westchester, and East, you'll have Latin communities, but Our Cuban community is, segregated in one area. Our Venezuelan community, the Colombian community, the Honduranians and Nicaragua, and because people tend to go and having associations with the culture, the people, they may just simply, no, I may have known you before in Iowa. Wow, okay, man, and I end up living down the street. That's fantastic experience, but how do we make sure that that isn't having a barrier for us, especially because of all the diversity that we have?
So Haiti's a perfect example. Although what's going on in Haiti is in Haiti, it's also local to Miami. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of people in the region, including my family, who are affected by what's going on there. And we have to create opportunities where we're not preaching to the choir. Create opportunities where people that would not normally have the opportunity to hear the truth or facts or history can come into a room together and hear from people that are experiencing that's their lived experience, because that's the only way. With Haiti, in the media, people pontificate on it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. They highlight all the poverty, but there's also a lot of richness in Haiti that doesn't have the opportunity to be elevated. Mm-hmm. The culture, the people, the education, all the languages spoken, the art, etc. So we create those arenas to have those types of courageous conversations that attract people that wouldn't normally have those opportunities.
Since you mentioned Haiti, and I think, and I will have Rachel at some juncture put that picture up when we do this. Mm-hmm. I was in Haiti with NBC, and due to my connections with the military, the Coast Guard allowed us and only us to go on one of the rescue missions in Jeremy, mm-hmm. out west, after one of the earthquake that transpired there. And it was the first helicopter that made it to an area near Jeremy to provide any relief and evacuate those who had been severely injured. And the lady in the back of the helicopter from the United States Coast Guard, her last name was Brewster. Mm-hmm. And Miss Brewster is from a small town in Alabama, okay? And she's a Caucasian female. And on that helicopter, she boarded a Haitian grandmother who spoke no English, but had been injured. And when I turned back to look at them, she was holding her as she would her own grandmother. Wow. And it was a powerful image to me that I put on the news, with NBC, about people really all being the same. And I asked Miss Brewster about that, and she said, no, I saw my grandmother in her. Mm. And if you think about it, especially the history of our land and our dark history in some places, mm-hmm. This young lady from one of these small towns in Alabama would have been the last person to lend a hand to a person of this lady's genetics. What does that say about us all being the same in many regards? Yes.
Well, that's an interesting question you ask, and I think when we look at all different religions, for instance, all different religions have the golden rule. There's a sense that we want to treat each other well, to treat each other as we want to be treated, regardless of race, regardless of culture, regardless of background, and that we, part of our genetics, I think, is to care about each other. I really do believe that we are hardwired to care about each other. My concern is it's easy to slip into looking only at differences. And when you only look at differences, that's only what you see. But when you see in the other person something about you, mm-hmm. that's when you can connect. And I think that, again, the golden rule comes up that all religion really wants us to care about each other. I was talking with a group yesterday, and they said, what is the meaning of life? And I said something to the effect of, well, it's balancing care for yourself with caring for others.
When I was stationed with the Air Force in Saudi Arabia, when the first Gulf War, there were times in my time in the Middle East, there were some days that I would be in faith in the Jewish temple. Mm-hmm. The next day I would be in faith at the mosque. The next thing I would be in faith at the Christian church. And in those times, what I learned is that we all are getting to the same place and want the same thing. The question is, how do we get there? And tell me about Mosaic and the specific types of things that you are taking to make that reality. We have a dream and a vision, sure. And I was always puzzled about that. I was going like, hey man, and whenever I went in each different place, and my spirituality can take me in any of those places, because I'm all getting to the same place, in my view. How do we actually get there?
So our almost 90 years of work in this community is facing its biggest test ever. Tom's been doing interfaith work a lot longer than I have. However, I think that we can both agree that the playbook is being redesigned day by day. Mm-hmm. Through the years of work of getting to know the different interfaith communities, there have been great relationships built. However, we have kind of we've rested on our kind of kumbaya laurels, which made things a little difficult. Where we're in a position today where, like you said, we're in silos, and people that have been locking arms for years aren't necessarily talking to one another. So we're trying to find different ways to where we can avoid silence, which is the most dangerous thing, and avoid pushing the dirt under the rug and hoping that's going to go away. It's not going to go away, and we're not going to get it right every time. But it's been very important that before bad things happen, we don't wait for relationships to be built. We find different ways so that when bad things do happen, we're already mobilized. I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. After the pandemic, faith leaders like Tom were very isolated. Attendance rates were very low in their houses of worship, and we need to find new ways to get congregates and people, faith or no faith, excited about coming together. So Tom and I, alongside others in the community, designed the We Are United March, which goes from the Freedom Tower to the Underline, two of Miami's beacons of hope, just coming to show that although independently we're all working on our missions, we're much stronger together. In the midst of designing that march, many great relationships amongst faith leaders and people in the community were made. At the end of the march, you had a Buddhist and a rabbi built a friendship together. And at the end of the march, they sang a song in each other's faith traditions, which was one of the most beautiful things. But the point I want to hone in on is the night prior to that event was when there was the shooting at Tops Grocery Store in Buffalo, New York. Mm-hmm. And we were the only group in the community that was mobilized to tell the people in Buffalo, we see you, we hear you, and we're there for you. Even prior to October 7th, mm-hmm. we had several events leading up to October 7th that were already in place, where the community was already mobilized. Again, the We Are United March took place November 5th, not even a month after October 7th, which was the first event where you had people from the Jewish community and the Muslim community together. It wasn't perfect, but it was powerful. Mm-hmm. So putting all those nuts and bolts and foundations prior to bad things happening is so important. And every day we're very focused on creating places where people can come together in community.
With two of the things you mentioned, Reverend, before I came here today, mm-hmm. clearly across America, our college campuses and our students divided in some respects over what is happening in the Middle East. Sure. And what worries me so much is that it appears that there's not the ability to be able to have a dialogue. I'm watching some of these things going like, wait a second, why are you all yelling at each other? Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts about seeing this now and I'm going to say, ferociousness that the positions of some people are making it very, very difficult to even have a intelligent, productive conversation.
Well, I'll tell you, start here in Miami. We had an event scheduled with an Islamic person and a Jewish person, and we had to, cancel that because it was so close to October 7th, because we were just worried about the intensity of the emotions that people were experiencing, and that emotion has not decreased. We've seen the Muslim community and the Jewish community having difficult times maintaining relationships, and I think I think a lot of the students that are out there who are protesting are protesting because they feel they have fear that people will lose sight of the devastation that's happening in Gaza right now, and they don't want people to lose sight of that. And a lot of them, I don't think, are anti-Semitic, but they're. What happens when the emotions are so high, people say things to each other that are damaging, hurtful things, and miscommunications occur. I was serving a church in Cedar Rapids once, and some of the conflict in the Middle East was occurring then as well. And the Muslim leader there, the imam, put something out about how he felt like what was going on in the Middle East in Gaza was akin to apartheid, not apartheid, to the World War II, where the Jews were killed, and so the Jewish community got really angry because they spoke about the terms of what all the people were killed during World War. All Jewish people were killed in World War II, and comparing it to Gaza, and it just set off a lightning storm among the faith communities, and people began to take sides, and it just escalated and escalated until we were able to bring people together, and we asked the imam and the rabbi to come together and to talk, and they each blessed the children of Gaza and the children of Israel. And in so doing, they were able to come together and show community and rebuild the fractured community that had happened. And my hope is that, right now people are getting arrested and there's fighting in these college campuses. Is there a way to show a message of unity, to bring the groups together and say, what do we agree on together? Where can we bless each other in order to build community back? So that would be my hope.
Matt, I would think that when you're dealing with this group of college students across the country, and certainly here, I had an event at my law alma mater at FIU not long ago where we had a variety of different political views, and one of the people that was coming in from outside of this area to participate as a panelist was a person that was part of the Trump administration and had a real concern about security there. Mm-hmm. And we haven't had at our FIU events any types of security issues or anything, but that was at the forefront of his mind about the program. I think these dialogues here in South Florida are going on, and they're going on in a positive vein to be able to come up with I would like to say a solution, mm-hmm. But some brilliant minds have tried to work on a solution for this for a considerable time period, and we're not there yet. How are you interjecting or being prepared to enhance that going forward?
The first thing that we have to do is give ourselves some grace, while at the same time maintaining urgency. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and it's day by day. I think that it's really important. We talk about college kids. It's really important to make sure that college kids are prepared to learn how to make common ground, to make common ground with their peers during the formative times of college. So we have a camp at Mosaic, Miami. It's called Camp Metrotown, and we bring 50 kids together for 1 week for a sleepaway camp at Barry University, and these are kids that would normally never have the opportunity to meet. and they learn how to make dialogue and get to know one another and build relationships, which are skill sets that are integral to going away to college. And we also give them the tools and history to understand dynamics like we're facing today. The college kids right now are very passionate. It's also very heartbreaking what's going on those campuses. So, and people are throwing around phrases and words that they might not necessarily understand the meaning of through that passion. So we give students those tools to understand how to navigate all that. And I think it starts with our youth.
Why does this escalate? What I saw today on the news was escalation of, I'm going to yell louder than you. So you start yelling louder than me, then I'm going to get the executive director to yell with me. And get, that how do we stop that?
Well, I think there's a few things that come to mind for me. One is we model it. We model civil dialogue. One of the things that I do with Mosaic Miami is we have the clergy dialogue, and we have faith leaders who show we can be in civil dialogue about difficult issues. And from that, I think we bring that into our congregations and not only our faith communities, but even the secular community. One of the things that I did years ago was we had a television show that was called Civil Dialogue, and something akin to that. Ethical perspectives on the news. And we said that anybody who came on this program had to have civil dialogue. And we had people of all stripes on that, from people that talked about gun rights, or, people who were extremely right religiously and left. I think people need to see that it's possible. I think we've been, what's been modeled for us in the secular community is being somewhat out of control, that you can say whatever you want or do whatever you want because it's your right, but it's not. The thing is that we have to be able to care about each other and to love one another and not let an impulse or a reaction control us and cause us to do something destructive to another human being. So my hope is that if we can start with the faith communities and show that we can do that together, even if we have disparate views, that we can make a difference.
I'll put my lawyer's hat on for a second and say, I hear people say all the time, and a lot of the college students, I have my free speech rights. Yes, you do, but there are limits to free speech. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, okay, that has the type of impact upon other people. So there are limits to doing that. Tell me about the event next weekend, how people can come forward and become part of your organization if they would choose to donate to your organization or volunteer their time. Walk us through all that.
Yes. So we're so happy to have you as our shepherd at our event on Sunday. We are having our 89th annual humanitarian dinner, where we give, we're calling it the heartbeat of Miami this year, where we give leaders from our community, civic and business and faith, leaders that really embody our mission, the Silver Medallion Award, which has been given to leaders from much of Miami's history. So Manny Medina will be getting our Bob Troig Lifetime Achievement Award. Reverend Lorinda Hafner will get our clergy medallion award, and then Rebecca Fishman-Lipsey, Meg Daly, Raul Cantero, Ken Hoffman will get our silver medallion. So we're really excited to honor all of them.
Okay. And for people to reach out to you, they want to get in contact with both of you, they want to become part of this, what do they do?
So they can first start by going to our website, mosaic-miami.org. We're also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Okay, so you got them all covered.
Yes.
Awesome. Now, this is a big concern of mine, is that when we talked about the siloing of information, I'm going to also say that things are always, I think now, in our political arena, being pitted as an us versus them. Yes, our country is founded on, in many ways, a two-party system, but by and large regard, until recently, most things in Congress or politically, people needed to keep the lights on and the water running and the toilets being flushed and those types of things. And it was a narrow areas of things where you may have a disagreement about policy and these types of things. Now it doesn't, to me, appear to be that way, that it is a tribal, you're either with us or you're against us. And this type of separation, how difficult is what's happening in our political world, making it to be able to get to the types of dialogue you'd like to have?
Well, and we're even seeing it in our faith communities, where faith communities have different political persuasions, and unfortunately, making it more difficult for even the faith communities to get certain things accomplished within their own tribes. But if people can see it modeled, I think one of the things is doing projects together is one way we can begin to do that. The Unity March was one of those. We are United March, but even just working together, helping the homeless or feeding the hungry, I think those are simple ways that we can bring diverse people together. When I was in Cedar Rapids, we had the massive flood that flooded all of downtown. And I was able to work with evangelicals, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and we were able all to work together, mucking out houses and rebuilding and helping each other be prepared for the next, climate catastrophe. And we were able to do that. But it takes some focus, something for us to do that we can do together. And we get to know each other as people as opposed to things, because I think when we start to see each other, us against them, we tend to see each other as objects objects we can hurt, objects we can do damage to. But people that we know, that we care about, that we work with, it's a lot more difficult to treat them as objects.
Yeah. How do you feel about how the political arena has, it appears to have embedded itself in a lot of these divisions?
So I think our country is more polarized now than ever, and it's going back to the basics. It's finding common interests that we can all get around, like Tom said, the homeless, affordable housing, et cetera, in this community. And at the end of the day, what that builds is trust. In order to make yourself willing to make yourself vulnerable, you have to trust those around you, and trust that if you say what's really on your heart, whether it's right or wrong, that your friend's not going to demonize you. I think that's important. We have a big problem when you have brothers and sisters not being able to sit at the Thanksgiving table and have an honest conversation. Last summer, I went to a conference in Gettysburg. It's called the Braver Angels Conference. It was 200 Democrats, 200 Republicans, and 200 independents all coming together. And we had nightly debates for something as basic as America, a racist nation. And people were not demonizing one another. People were able to have civil debates and oftentimes agree. And that gave me a tremendous amount of hope. And at Mosaic Miami, we have similar types of conversations where we bring pretty hot topics to the table, and due to the fact that our peers in the community trust us, that we're not going to let things get out of hand. I think it's a big deal. There have been many nights where Tom and I have both sat up late night thinking, how in the world are we going to have this conversation tomorrow? And although they haven't been perfect, they've been productive. So we just have to keep modeling that behavior.
Hopefully, we don't have any storms this year, but when you mentioned that, something that does bring our community together, when we are all dealing with a weather phenomenon,
Fair enough.
We're all on the same page. As we're all on the same page, if the Miami Heat can beat the Boston Celtics by some way, shape, fashion, and form, that brings our community together, and people that have great differences all on the same page. Reverend, final thoughts and words for you as our community continues to move forward and learn from both of you to try to have a conversation.
Well, I guess I would say is don't give up. It's easy when things are hard, it's easy when there's a lot of divisiveness to say, oh, this is too hard. I don't want to talk to that person. I don't want to engage that person. I say, don't give up. That is just a person. That's a person that hurts just like you, that has some of the same issues in their life just like you. Make the time to spend a little time with somebody. Maybe that's different, and maybe that's a little challenging. And don't give up. We're going to get through this.
I would say the important thing is that we're all in this together. And if you have something that's really on your heart, reach out to your neighbor, reach out to your brother and say it, and trust that what you say is going to be taken as it's going to move things in a positive direction. And we really need to be together in this really difficult time for our country.
Thanks to both of you for your advice and counsel moving forward. I always say that when you build relationships along the way, when there is a crisis, that relationship, and good relationship being the foundation, is the foundation to resolving the crisis. So always thanks for being with us here on the Miami Community News Network on In the Know. This is Willard Shepard, Willard Shepard Law and Media. And don't forget, go over to Mosaic's website, find out information about all their events in our community coming up.